Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Morning Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing another quick tip tactica, this time asking and answering one simple question. How many orders do you need for your Imperial Guard army? You see, Guard orders are a fantastic force multiplier. They can take a mediocre datasheet and turn it into a force to be reckoned with. But knowing how many orders you should have and which units should be prioritized for them can be a bit tricky, especially if you're new to the Guard. So today, I'm going to take you through step by step my thoughts behind orders and the Guard. And so without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let's lift up the rock and have a good look underneath and dive right into today's episode. So here's the thing. I get a lot of lists sent into me to review. So many that it's impossible for me to get back to all of them. In fact, I tend to do most of my list reviews during my live stream, so little shameless plug here, but if you have a list that you want me to have a look over, I'm more than happy to do it. Just consider joining all the live streams because that's when I can take a look at it right there and then you can get some instant feedback. But one of the most common problems that I see with the lists that get sent to me is they're very top heavy. What I mean by this is they have a really extensive officer core, loads and loads of characters. You might have a list with the Lord Solar, multiple platoon command squads, multiple Death Corps marshals, Creed and Strachan is in there. And I have genuinely seen multiple lists sent to me where over a quarter of the army is dedicated towards characters. This comes up all of the time, and it's one of the more common mistakes that I see. Guard commanders feel like they must have an order for every single unit, and so they end up spending a disproportionate amount of points on supporting their units rather than the units themselves. And it's never a good equation if you're spending more to support a unit than on that actual unit. This leads to all sorts of inefficiencies where you have loads of officers, but you don't have quite enough infantry to play the primary game. You have quite enough tanks to have the firepower. Sure, all those tanks are having an order, but there's not many of them. And then inevitably something has been cut entirely, and maybe there's no indirect fire. That always seems to be the first thing to go. The indirect fire or the units that can get secondary points like Scions, Deep Striking Down and stuff like that. Those are always the first to go. And so you end up with a list which hasn't got everything it needs to get the job done. And it's kind of bloated by this excessive officer core. But wait a second. I don't want anyone to hear what I've just said and to go over to that list and strip out all of the characters and to take them down to the bare bones. That will cause its own problems. If you don't have enough officers, then you won't have enough force multipliers and your datasheets will struggle to stand on their own 2 feet. The most important thing when it comes to taking officers and orders in your list is to have a fine balance. There is very much a Goldilocks zone that you want to try and achieve when you're taking these units. I know that that is a little intangible and it might be difficult to know if you are a newer player where that Goldilocks zone is. And I know that some of you just quite like the numbers. This is a very rough guide, but I tend to say, and I personally tend to aim to have about 75%, 66 to 75% of the units in my army supported by orders. Like I said, there is a lot more to it than just a simple number, but that tends to be what I aim for. The most important thing when determining how many orders you take in your army comes down to one very important question. How many units in your army need orders to fulfill the goal and fulfill the tactic that you have in mind for them? Here are a couple of examples. Let's say you have a unit of 20 Death Corps of Krieg. Their job in your army is to move on to the primary objectives and hold them as long as possible, because you need them to get you as many primary points as they can over the course of the game. Every turn that they hold on for is another turn where your high objective control troops will more than likely hold an objective. You then have a unit of 5 Scions. These 5 Scions are going to deep strike down, get you a secondary objective, and then die. Now, in this example, the Death Corps of Kriegers obviously need an order. They need access to move, so they can get at the board quickly, and they also need access to take cover so that they can get extra armor saves and they can be very durable whilst on that unit. In this example, a perfect fit for that Death Corps of Krieg unit is either a platoon command squad or a Death Corps marshal. Both of those units are going to add durability to the unit with the orders, but also the platoon command squad has extra bodies, and the medic gets a 6 feel no pain, and the Death Corps marshal also brings its own 5 feel no pain. So one of those officer choices would be great for the Death Corps, because not only are you getting your orders, you're also getting some other benefits out of them as well. On the flip side, the Scions don't need an officer. They don't need an order to be taken into account for them, because they're not going to be around long enough to feel it. You can't order the Scions whilst they're in deep strike. The turn that they drop down, it's already after the command phase, so you can't give them an order then. And they're so fragile that any cursory spare firepower, any incidental firepower your opponent might have, is just going to sweep them away. So there's no point in taking an officer and an order to support the unit. They're not going to benefit from it. Okay, I will admit that was a pretty obvious example. Let's move to a few other less obvious ones. You have a Chimera with an infantry squad inside. That infantry squad is armed with a las cannon and a grenade launcher. You've also got a Leman Russ. It can be, let's say, an exterminate. That's a pretty common variant. Now, both of these units have the potential to do some damage. You've got the exterminator, which is a main battle tank, which has got its big guns. They can sling out some good Daka, but don't forget that the Chimera has got heavy bolters, heavy stubber, las gun arrays, las cannon, and grenade launcher coming out that firing deck. So surely you'd need an order for both of these units. Well, no. You need an order for one or the other. If you need, out of these two units, you need them to do damage, well, the main focus on that is going to be the exterminator. He is the principal damage dealer. Why have you put him into your list? Because he needs to be taking out chunks of the enemy army. Okay, so if you've got one order available for these two units, and this turn you need to do damage, that's the top priority, well then obviously he gets the order. But if you are needing to take an objective or do some screening or deploy a infantry squad out so that it can do an action of some kind, well then the Chimera gets priority and they can receive the move order. You're never going to have enough orders without massively compromising your list to support both of these units. So, and there's always, even if it's difficult, there's always going to be a top priority, whether it's doing damage or maneuverability. And this isn't across the whole board. This can be localized. So one side of the board you might need to be doing damage, the other side of the board you might need to be doing maneuvers. The point is that both of these units would be eligible for an order, but you as the player need to understand what is the priority, doing damage or doing support and doing maneuvers.
Attention guardsmen, this is an announcement by the Departamento Militarum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off Bolt Action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout!
Digging a little bit further into this, you might have two units which can do damage. Let's say you've got the aforementioned Leman Russ Exterminator, but you've also got a Leman Russ Battle Tank. Now, you've only got one order to support these two units. Which one do you give it to? This is where you start looking at the data sheets on each tank, and you should be doing this before you've got to the battlefield. You should have planned this out as part of the list building process. I often include a Leman Russ battle tank in my army because it doesn't need orders for it to do its job of hurting the enemy, because its ability gives it reroll ones to hit when shooting at enemy units, and if that enemy unit is on an objective, a primary objective, it gets full rerolls to hit. Now, when it comes to my battle tanks, my go-to order is take aim, so that they can hit more accurately. Well, my Leman Russ battle tank doesn't need take aim if it's got full rerolls. It's nice, but it doesn't need it. Whereas my Exterminator, it doesn't have those rerolls. It needs to make sure that it's being accurate in order for it to do damage. So in this scenario, even though both are damage dealers and both would be good targets for orders, one tank can look after itself and one tank needs that support. And there are all sorts of examples with this in the Guard. You don't need to order your vehicle-based artillery, for example, Basilisks and Manticores, because they have ballistic skill 4 inbuilt. So even if you're shooting at something indirect, because they have ballistic skill 4+ and most of their guns are heavy, +1, -1 hit on 4s, that's good enough for artillery. So those vehicles don't need orders, but your tanks, often do. Likewise with Hellhounds. Well, Hellhounds are going to be equipped with Inferno Cannons and Heavy Flamers. Those units aren't going to need take aim. Those units are going to automatically hit. So again, it's an example of a unit that you can put in your army that doesn't need an order and therefore doesn't have that hidden points cost associated with taking officers. On the flip side, you might have support units like mortars and field ordnance batteries, which really do need those orders. Hitting on 5s with an expensive 120 point artillery unit like a FOB is not good. So you're going to have to take the field ordnance battery, and when you're building your list, you're probably going to need to take into account an order for that unit as well. Another factor that you need to take into account when determining how many orders you need in your list and which units need to be led by officers is how many orders can each officer do. There is no point in taking 2 units of Kashan jungle fighters and then giving 1 Harker and 1 Strachan, because Strachan does 2 orders. So provided that those 2 units of Kashan stay relatively close together, let's say they work on a flank together, there's enough orders there to support both units from a single character. And you can do this with Creed as well. If you take Creed and then take a platoon command squad and have a sort of pseudo budget supreme command block that can sit behind a line side blocking ruin and put some orders out there, well, that one unit that the platoon command squad and Creed have joined onto, they don't need an order. And then you've got 3 orders available there, 1 from the officer and 1 from Creed, that can support 3 other blobs of infantry. So you might have 1 squad with officers in it supporting 4 units in total. And finally, there's one other consideration. And it's probably the most grimdark one, but it's casualties. Your army is going to take casualties over the course of the game. If you start off with every unit in your army receiving orders, then what happens when some of those units start dying off? You're going to have officers who you have paid for, who a significant portion of their points cost is because they can do orders, doing nothing. If you start off and every unit can receive an order, after a couple of turns, you're going to have officers running around just doing nothing, just taking up space, just being a waste of time. And those are points that you could have spent putting into other units in your army to do more damage and to have more objective play. I tend to find that if I start off the game and I've got enough orders to cover, like I said, about 75% of my army, by the time I get to turn 3, beginning of turn 3, I've suddenly got enough orders for everyone, because there will have been, this is the Guard, all right? people die. We're a very, very, very attritional based faction. And so we're going to lose units. We're going to take casualties. And so to have an efficient use of orders, you need to understand that whilst you might not start the game being able to cover your whole army, certainly by the midway point, you're going to have enough orders for everyone. So in summary, there is no hard and fast rule for how many orders should be in your army. It all comes down to what units are in your list and which of those units do you need support with orders so that they can perform their primary function, the job that you have laid out for them in your battle plan. Just blindly going forward and making sure you've got an order for every unit is going to make your list way less efficient and much less effective. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. How many orders do you tend to include in your army, and what are your go-to units for that order support? Don't forget that if you have enjoyed today's video, you need to smash that like button. It really does make a huge difference. It feeds the almighty and unknowing machine spirit, which is the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.